Hi, everyone. I'm Bill Squadron, President of Our Energy Policy, and thank you for joining us today for what will be a very stimulating, insightful conversation with an exceptional group of panelists on the issues associated with hydrogen and energy. I know is something that is of great interest to our community, and we're looking forward to this very interesting conversation. Thank you for taking the time to join us. I would like to thank our partners for supporting this series, and particularly our co-host today, Shepard Mullen. We'll be getting to it in just a second. One thing I do want to encourage all of you to do is to use the question tab, and if you have questions as the conversation is unfolding, please submit them. The last part of the hour, we'll get to your questions. We'll get to as many as we can, and please get your questions in as they occur to you. I also, in addition to thanking our partners, would like to suggest to you that the library on Our Energy Policy's website will contain significant materials, already contains, but we'll add some significant materials to the discussion that you hear today, all on the subject of hydrogen. So I highly recommend that you check out the resource library section of Our Energy Policy's website. I'm now going to turn this over to our panel, and I'm delighted that our co-host is Shepard Mullen today, and our moderator is Tony Taranto, a partner in the San Diego office of Shepard Mullen and the team leader of the energy infrastructure and finance team there, who's worked on numerous large-scale clean energy and conventional energy projects. So we're delighted to have Tony moderating this discussion, and I'm now going to turn it over to him to get things started. Tony?
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Bill, thanks so much for that kind introduction. As Bill just mentioned, my name is Tony Taranto, and I'm a partner at Shepard Mullen. Shepard Mullen is a firm of over 1,000 lawyers, national and international, but mostly based in the United States. And of those 1,000 lawyers, approximately 90 of us are members of the energy team. And so this is an area where we're really deep and really strong. And as Bill mentioned, I'm proud to be one of the co-leaders of that energy team. As part of our mission of serving our clients in the industry, one of the things that's really important for us, and renewable energy is a huge and important sector of what we do, but one of the most important things that we do, even within renewables, is that we want to make sure that we're also focused in on the leading edge. And so we identify opportunities where we think the industry is going, where people are not only spending attention, but kind of where the puck is going to be. And in that respect, we identified some time ago green hydrogen as an area of important focus for the firm, and it's been a very important focus for our team, an important focus for me as I've been involved in green hydrogen projects and in also advocating for the development of green hydrogen infrastructure and hubs, et cetera. So it's been an important part of my practice, an important part of our team, and I know it's a very important part of the speakers and panelists that are here to join us here today. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to each of them for our very distinguished panel and give each of them an opportunity to introduce themselves. So for starters, I'm going to hand it over to Connor Dolan with the Fuel Cell Hydrogen Energy Association. Connor?
Great. Thank you so much, Tony. And thank you, Bill, and the Our Energy Policy team for the invitation to join you all today. It's a pleasure. I'm Connor Dolan, the Vice President of External Affairs here for the Fuel Cell and Hydrogen Energy Association. We are the National Association for the Hydrogen Industry, been around for over 30 years, representing the industry in all aspects of hydrogen production, distribution, and end use. It's a pleasure to be joining you all today, and looking forward to the great conversation.
Thank you, Connor. It's interesting. I used to have a friend who was a great golfer whose last name was Golf. So it's really interesting to have Thomas Green with us, being able to talk to us about green hydrogen, clean hydrogen, and coming to us from the DOE. So Thomas?
Well, thank you, Tony. And it is a pleasure to be with you all on the OEP team today. I've tuned into many a webinar, so it's a little surreal being on the other side of the screen here. My name is Thomas Green. I'm a Hydrogen Shot Fellow in the Hydrogen Fuel Cell Technology Office in DOE. We have been, at this hydrogen game for well over 20 years, built up a lot of experience, and we're really excited about this moment that we're in now, where we have the opportunity to really show how hydrogen can decarbonize important sectors of the economy. So I've only been in the office a little under a year now, but before this, I was at the great team at Energy Futures Initiative and at MIT before that. So I'm really looking forward to the discussion today.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Thanks for joining. And next, I'm delighted to introduce Judith Johnson with National Grid. Judith.
All right, thank you. It is great to be here. Judith Judson. I am a vice president and I wear two hats at National Grid. I head our strategy for our US business. We serve 20 million people with gas and heat in New York and New England. And I also am heading up for our National Grid Ventures team, our work in hydrogen. Earlier this year, we put out a vision for a clean energy future that included decarbonizing our gas system one of the strategies to do that was through the utilization and blending of hydrogen into our system, as well as renewable natural gas, and as well as other potential new technologies like geothermal and targeted electrification, and of course, energy efficiency. But hydrogen we see as part of the solution to decarbonize hard to decarbonize buildings. We also own a power generation fleet to look at how we decarbonize that and to enable really emissions reductions where other solutions aren't there as well. And so working with industry. So excited to be here and look forward to the discussion.
Thanks so much, Judith. And whereas I'm going to direct some questions to certain panelists, we're going to try and make this as much of a conversation and with give and take throughout. So you'll hear panelists chiming in throughout. In addition, though, for those of us, for all of you in the audience, if you have questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat. The way we're going to do this is we're going to go through a series of topics that we think will be of interest to our audience, but we'll be leaving some time at the end for Q&A. So we won't be turning to those questions during the main body of the presentation, but instead we'll be holding those and addressing any of those at the end. So let's go ahead and kick it off with the first question that I have. I want to direct this one to Connor to kind of open it up. And if you could, Connor, just provide an overview of the different types of hydrogen out there. Obviously, many of us talk about them with reference to different kinds of colors. But I think that it's helpful for folks in the audience. We obviously have people who are leaders and very experienced in hydrogen, but we have people of sort of different levels. So if you could, for starters, kind of create the lexicon or library of the different types of hydrogen out there, and we'll then go from there.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So hydrogen is an industrial gas. It's been used in the United States for many decades. We already produce about 10 million metric tons of hydrogen per year for a variety of applications, petroleum refining, pharmaceuticals, and a variety of kind of applications on that space. Most of that hydrogen is produced what's called gray hydrogen. It's produced from natural gas using steam methane reforming. Takes steam and heat to break that hydrogen or that natural gas into a stream of CO2 and a stream of hydrogen that can be used for many of these processes. Right now, the drive and momentum in the hydrogen industry is really around a variety of these clean hydrogen pathways that are under development, really taking a strong momentum right now. So there's a variety of what's called colors of hydrogen. We try and refer to all of them as just kind of the umbrella of clean hydrogen pathways. But within that clean hydrogen umbrella, there's green hydrogen, which is using electrolysis from renewable solar or wind power. So taking solar wind electricity, running it through a current through water, breaking that water into hydrogen and oxygen, you get your zero emission hydrogen from that pathway. There's also what's called blue hydrogen, which is where you take that existing gray hydrogen facility using steam methane reforming of natural gas, and you add carbon capture and sequestration to it to reduce the CO2 intensity of that hydrogen. And there's a couple other colors out there. There's pink and turquoise for nuclear hydrogen, or what's called methane pyrolysis, which produces a solid carbon black as a byproduct. That's turquoise. but really they're all under this kind of clean hydrogen umbrella. And that's what the momentum is right now. Just we had about 10 million metric tons produced annually in the United States for many decades, and that really is going to be ramping up and already is starting to ramp up significantly in the last couple of years. We are seeing billions of dollars of investments of new clean hydrogen production facilities at large scale for the first time in decades. That's $4 billion by Air Products down in Louisiana. We're seeing $1 billion loan guarantee for methane pyrolysis in Nebraska. We're seeing this new production facility of with liquid hydrogen using renewable natural gas out of Las Vegas. There's a variety of electrolyzer developments underway, producing green hydrogen, and it's just a really exciting time right now just to see this momentum for this hydrogen sector.
Thank you, Colin. That's great. I want to take that and go with it a little bit further. Judith, in particular, maybe you could talk a little bit about the role, you alluded to this in your introduction, the role that you see of hydrogen in efforts to decarbonize the economy and achieve net zero goals.
Yeah, thank you. We see an important role for hydrogen and are very excited about some of the things Connor just mentioned in terms of funding that's coming into the space and enabling really the creation of hydrogen with from renewables and green energy. It's very complementary, particularly when you count when there's potential curtailment of renewables. It's also a great resource in the Northeast from some of the hydro resources that we have. So how do we see it playing a role? There are hard to decarbonize sectors, and one of those is hard to decarbonize buildings, also power generation. We will need dispatchable generation in order to meet growing electric load from electrifying transport, coupled with greater use of intermittent renewables. So we see an opportunity there for both generation and storage. And then we see opportunities in industrial applications as well, process gases. So when we look though at serving our customers with heat, we did a big analysis saying what are the different pathways to get there. And really what we showed is that there is a benefit to doing just like we did on our wires with decarbonizing our wires through wind and solar, to doing the same thing through our gas network, changing to clean molecules with a blend of hydrogen and renewable natural gas. So we see a role for hydrogen there. We're excited about the funding that's coming that can enable that. But the reason that that's beneficial is we found that one, particularly in the Northeast, reutilizing existing infrastructure, and our system can have a blend of hydrogen into it, saves our customers a lot of money versus building new wires, building new substations, if it were to be all electric. It also enables our customers to have choice and to continue to use their appliances that they have for heat or cooking or other appliances. We found that this is incredibly beneficial when we talk to customers that maybe have made new investments in systems that these are not typically replaced except for every 20 to 30 years. So it's meeting our customers where they are, and it's also equitable. It doesn't require new additional upfront investment. It utilizes existing infrastructure. It changes that supply to clean, and it is equitable for our customers. So we saw a lot of benefits of hydrogen. And that ability to really, just enable clean energy for all, not only for those who can make, big investment in their system, as being one of the immediate benefits in the heating side and the building sector side for our customers.
Thank you, Judith. And Thomas and Connor, we talk a lot about energy transition, and we talk a lot about, Judith alluded a bit, there's a transition in terms of the wires from carbon to electrons, right? Now we have other types of energy transition underway, and specifically with respect to embracing the use of hydrogen, are there, what sectors do you see as having the most potential to adopt hydrogen, both in terms of size and perhaps in terms of speed?
Yeah, I think in the near term, we can definitely see a lot of uptake from some of the existing users of hydrogen that Connor mentioned at the beginning. So large industrial users, such as ammonia facilities and people who manufacture methanol, they probably have the lowest technical barriers to integrating clean hydrogen because they currently have hydrogen feedstocks. So being able to switch from a dirty hydrogen production method to a clean hydrogen production method is a real near-term, low-hanging fruit opportunity for the market. I think in the longer term, we look at a lot of different use cases. Certainly things like long distance transportation, targeting the trucking sector and off-road transportation, things like mining vehicles, where there really is no feasible way to decarbonize through electrification or with battery storage, because the batteries are just simply too heavy for those vehicles. So hydrogen plays a really key strategic role there. And I think using hydrogen as a feedstock for other low carbon fuels is one of those things that we're looking at very closely, specifically sustainable aviation fuels. The administration has a goal to produce 3 billion gallons of sustainable aviation fuel by 2030 and to replace every gallon that we use domestically by 2050. So that would be 35 billion gallons by 2050. Producing those 35 billion gallons would require between 2 million and 6 million metric tons of hydrogen. So about as much merchant hydrogen is on the market today could go directly towards sustainable aviation fuel production. And this would really be a potential replacement for some of the current petroleum refining today, because the chemistries are pretty similar. We use a lot of hydrogen to refine a barrel of oil into a lot of useful commodity products. And what you're doing is breaking up long carbon chains into shorter, lighter, more usable carbon chains. And so the chemistry is pretty similar. So we have a lot of workforce understanding. We have a lot of safety and procedural knowledge already of this process. And so I think that's a great story of the industrial transition at work in producing sustainable aviation fuels. And one other plug I'll make out there is certainly seasonal energy storage. There's few things that can bridge between fall and summer like we need to for a deeply decarbonized grid. And hydrogen, might be one of those best technologies for that.
I see Connor nodding feverishly as you rattled off some of your points. Connor?
Yeah, definitely. I think all those points are absolutely correct and same line of thinking as us. I think there's a lot of easily to transition to low carbon, clean hydrogen pathways with existing ammonia, methanol. Certainly, long term. Long term. Energy storage. I think seasonal energy storage is absolutely going to be critical as we get a greater penetration of renewables on the grid. There's no other option really available for large scale and long term energy storage other than hydrogen. And the versatility of hydrogen to then not only use it for power generation, but for transportation fuels, for industrial uses. There's a lot of options on the table there once you have that hydrogen produced. I just want to also plug that, beyond transportation, right now we have about 15,000 fuel cell vehicles on the road in California. There's certainly opportunities to continue expanding that on the light duty space, but we have about 100 hydrogen powered buses, some early demonstrations of trucks. Expanding into that medium and heavy duty market is absolutely going to be critical. As Thomas had referred to, there's really just a lot of issues with transitioning to batteries for those heavier duty vehicles, and the ability to have the same range and refueling time as diesel vehicles with zero emissions is absolutely going to be critical, especially for fleet operations where you have to have 24-hour operations and runtime. It's very hard for a lot of these big fleet operators to have their fleet down for hours a day while they're trying to recharge these vehicles. It's one area I think is a nice transition that we've already seen huge adoption on the forklift and material handling space. There's 60,000 fuel cell powered forklifts in operation across the country at warehouse and distribution centers, and that's because it makes economic sense for Amazon and Walmart, these big operators, to switch over to hydrogen from batteries, because otherwise they'd have to have for each forklift in operation, they have to have one for 8 hours of charging and one for 8 hours of cooling. Takes up huge amount of their floor space, takes huge amounts of time, Takes a lot of issues for that. And instead, they just replace it with the hydrogen forklift, refuels in 90 seconds, and they're back on the go. So I think that's a good good way of looking at the benefits of hydrogen and how it can be applied to a lot of other sectors as well.
Those are great examples, Connor. I do want to touch on one area that's a large sector that you also referred to a little bit, which is the power generation market as it relates to hydrogen. And obviously, there are a lot of competing technologies, right, for producing power, and particularly as we see the energy transition again from carbon to electrons, as I said before, and we're reducing our carbon footprint. How is it that you see the cost structure now, and where do you see the cost structure going as it relates to hydrogen as a fuel source in power generation versus fossil fuels or other renewable resources? I'll throw that open for
Sure.
maybe Connor, if you want to start, and we'll take others' views on that as well.
Yeah, so right now we have about 550 megawatts of fuel cells installed across the country for power generation. Those are either powered by hydrogen or natural gas directly. And the reason that folks are adopting these is really just for critical facilities that have to have very high resiliency and reliability in their runtime. Data centers, hospitals, folks that if they have even just a few minutes of downtime, it's going to cost them a lot of money. So they are paying a higher upfront cost today for hydrogen and for fuel cells because of that benefits that the systems have. We are seeing, folks like Microsoft are really looking into expanding their data center operations running on hydrogen fuel cells for backup power because they just have this huge reliability and resiliency effort. So I think that's kind of where it is now. I do see costs coming down for our systems and for the fuel, which will make it more economical for a lot of other options for microgrids and others expanding out from there. But that is, it's certainly a higher upfront cost today, but it makes sense for a lot of critical activities and applications.
Judith,
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in on that. So, we definitely see when we look at state decarbonization plans that there is a need for dispatchable generation and also long-term storage in order to play a role in the power generation that comes from other, intermittent renewables, wind and solar. So we see hydrogen as being very complementary to that. And what we're seeing in the market, we operate a fleet of power generation resources on Long Island. We are seeing the development of turbines that can run on 100% hydrogen, or moving in that direction to take either blends and then moving to 100% hydrogen. And so we see the technology coming in on that and the costs coming down. In terms of supply, the today price of natural gas is lower than the today's price of hydrogen, but with the production tax credit, with the fact that then you can actually stack tax credits with potentially utilizing renewables, particularly if they are going to be curtailed, to benefit from that production tax credit, produce green hydrogen with very low prices, and then store it and then utilize it in a dispatchable generation. The economics are moving in the right direction. I think we're going to see something very similar to what we saw in wind and solar, where the prices have come down rapidly. And DOE's Earthshot is to do that. I think the hydrogen hubs is to create that hydrogen economy where economies of scale come into play that enables that reduction in cost. So I think from meeting our net zero goals, hydrogen has a role to play, and to meeting so affordably, I see hydrogen on a trajectory to do that.
So I think that's a great segue also into another important part of the discussion of how hydrogen actually gets rolled out and how we actually put it into practice. And that relates to kind of the network of programs, incentives, and such that are now available or that will become available associated with that. So let's talk about policy for a moment. And first, you alluded to it a bit, Judith, but we're obviously with the benefit of having Thomas here. Thomas, can you talk to us a bit more specifically about the DOE Hydrogen Shot Initiative and explain that initiative, explain its role, and also we'll then talk a little bit more about what the process is going to be and help educate this audience. I know that's very interested in that.
Certainly. So the hydrogen shot was launched over a year ago in 2021 and set a 10-year target to get the country to $1 to produce 1 kilogram within that 1 decade. So currently our production costs are around $5 per kilogram when at scale for electrolysis. And that would be with only with using renewable energy. So we're looking for about an 80% cost reduction. And getting that, as has been mentioned, is partly achieved by getting to scale, and things like the hydrogen hubs will certainly help with that. But we also still need innovation in the technology and in the what we call the balance of plant, which is the system design of these facilities. So we need innovation in those areas as well. So it'll take both a public and private partnership to make sure that we're getting the right technologies down the pipeline and then scaling those up as quickly as we can. Certainly the hydrogen shot supports fellows like myself. And if folks are interested, we are still in the process of bringing on hydrogen shot fellows who are interested in joining this great work at DOE. So wanted to make that plug for that as well.
And let's talk about, thank you, Thomas. I'm going to keep you talking on recent incentives and programs. So can you lay out and talk about the Hydrogen Hub initiative and what you see in the future in terms of process, how DOE plans to deploy the resources, and what you see coming down the pipe?
Yeah, so there's not a lot I can say publicly about it because folks are in the process of writing applications, and we certainly don't want to bias people any particular way. The concept papers are due on November 7th, which is just right around the corner. And what we announced was a selection of between 6 to 10 hubs that would be using a combined total of $6 to $7 billion in this original funding announcement. And just to put it all in perspective, I believe this is the largest FOA that has been put out by DOE as far as I've been able to track. So this is and really never before has a FOA attacked all these issues of not just getting the technology right, not just being able to scale up that technology, but also thinking about the workforce, thinking about environmental justice, and thinking about how it all can go into supporting and really getting to the heart of this chicken and egg issue of making sure that we are meeting supply as well as demand. I think there needs to be a lot of focus on how do we have bankable, sustainable off-takers that can make sure that these hubs will exist long beyond DOE funding and support. So we certainly look forward to those applications. And if there's any questions related to that, you can submit those questions to h2hubs@hq.doe.gov, and I will drop that in the chat because we want to make sure that all questions about the hubs are being answered publicly and not one group is getting privileged access to information.
We certainly appreciate that. So thank you. And Connor, how important do you think the hub initiative is going to be for purposes of building out green hydrogen infrastructure and really building a hydrogen economy?
I think it's going to be hugely critical and instrumental in just building this hydrogen economy in the United States. These regional hydrogen hubs, we are just seeing so much excitement from almost every state house across the country. And it's, I think, going to just be driving a lot of interest. Even if states and regions that don't get hubs, they are already building the infrastructure now so that they can build that local hydrogen activity. And I think the combination with the Clean Hydrogen Production Tax Credit, the new 45V credit that was enacted by the Inflation Reduction Act, working together with these regional hydrogen hubs is going to be just monumental. I don't think it can be understated how impactful this is to have these two programs launching simultaneously. The amount of hydrogen being produced now is just going to be incredible. I think we are going to see, just a few months ago, we were having conversations. What's the time frame for when we might be looking at hydrogen for export from the United States? And it was, maybe a decade or two. It's going to take quite a while for us to build up the amount of hydrogen we're going to need, even just to use domestically for where we see this economy going. Now, I think that conversation is certainly shifting, and we could be seeing huge amounts of domestic production and offtake, but we might even have excess hydrogen that might need to be shipped around to Japan or Europe. There's a lot of other places and regions around the world that are looking for clean hydrogen that they can, ensure that it is a certified low carbon clean hydrogen. And I think it's going to be really, really huge.
Thanks, Connor. Judith, can you share your thoughts on the role of federal incentives, federal programs?
Absolutely. So publicly out there, National Grid is a partner and a participant in the Northeast Hydrogen Hub, being led by NYSERDA and including 6 states, including Massachusetts, which we also serve. And so we're very excited to be a part of that. I won't go into too much detail. It is highly competitive, and don't want to give anything away in terms of where we see the value in our hub relative to others. But what I can talk about is where we see writ large the value that National Grid can bring, and what we're seeing in the marketplace writ large. One, I think anytime you have major government funding that is specifically designed to encourage long-term development of a hydrogen economy, or any economy, an economic shift, that's incredibly beneficial. The goal really should be to take this, basically the government to take the seed money and turn it into private capital coming in. And I have just been amazed at the amount of interest from different players, experienced energy players, but coming into the market and looking at how to supply hydrogen or utilize it in different use cases. I think it is really jump-starting and really will be the catalyst to create a sustainable hydrogen economy in this country that can serve both domestic purposes, and, as Connor mentioned, maybe can also serve as and continuing to benefit our economy, but can serve as export as well. But from our role, we're really looked at what we can deliver that adds value to our customers and adds value into the creation of that economy. We can be that offtake, utility grade quality offtake that can enable not just our own use cases, but other use cases as well. We do need to balance supply and demand. There needs to be early demand cases, and we have a system based on investments we're already planning to make that could blend hydrogen, immediately providing emissions benefits to our customers, and also creating the scale, even at relatively low blends into our system, the scale needed to jumpstart broader development of electrolyzers and other supply. We also, as I said, is that a creditworthy off-taker. We saw that in the offshore wind development, where National Grid was an off-taker for offshore wind. That creditworthy off-taker jump-started a market that now has grown, exponentially in the last 5 years. So we're excited to play that role in hydrogen. We also can be a flexible source of demand. We can vary, the percentage of blend, be that while hydrogen storage is getting developed, it enables the use of our system. For example, if one of our customers is a bus depot and now they add hydrogen fueling, we could, be able to enable hydrogen for that and adjust our system. So we're very flexible as well as very large. And those two things as a demand is exactly what can enable all these other use cases. So we're excited about the role we can play, the benefits it brings our customer, but really it's all because of this opportunity that's coming out of DOE and saying we want to see this happen, and putting money that can enable that, that with that cost share, enable funding for things that otherwise may be hard to either get approved or hard to be done otherwise until the market grows and those proof points are reached. The IRA is also the production tax credit on green hydrogen. Our goal is to see green hydrogen develop. It is to be a clean source of energy. I know there's multiple sources, but it's really about that, getting from gray to green. And so the production tax credit is extremely helpful in that and making it competitive with fossil fuels. Our plan is to eliminate fossil fuels, but we want to do so affordably, and that tax credit speeds up the timeline. We thought it was going to get there in the future. We think it just moves the date much further up. It means we can start decarbonizing quickly with hydrogen and affordable.
Yeah, so it's wonderful. I think how it accelerates the curve, right, for purposes of how green hydrogen can be developed economically and deployed. Connor, I'm sorry, it sounded like you had something to say about that too.
I was just going to say, what I think is so incredible about the clean hydrogen production tax credit is it's based on carbon intensity, not on any specific pathway. So it does have a much higher incentive for that zero emission or ultra low emission, low carbon hydrogen. So producing, green hydrogen or hydrogen from nuclear energy, a variety of sources on that. And it has, it's up to $3 a kilogram, which is really a lot. Right now, it costs about $1 a kilogram to produce hydrogen from steam methane reforming, maybe about $1.60, maybe as high as $2 for blue hydrogen or adding carbon capture and sequestration to that. And you get about a 60-cent credit for SMR with CCS. So it's meant to bring down that cost to about the same as gray hydrogen. And this, the cost of green hydrogen today is anywhere from maybe like $3 to $7. Probably more like 4 to 7. So this is again meant to bring that down to about cost parity with gray hydrogen today, making it much more economical to adopt cleaner, greener forms of hydrogen and really drive that adoption. So it's going to be really impactful to grow the economy on this side. One thing I also just want to reference about the hydrogen hubs is the opportunities for states and these regions to use their domestic resources. So there's some states and regions that have an abundance of offshore wind or solar wind or nuclear power. Some are very heavy on natural gas and fossil fuels. And it provides a flexibility for states and regions to use whatever hydrogen and pathways that they have available in their resources, and also utilize those domestic offtake. So some areas that have a lot of steel and cement plants might be a great opportunity to produce a lot of hydrogen and use that in those areas. Some places that are producing ammonia or methanol could do that. Power generation and transportation are also really high up there. But I think it's just a really excellent opportunity to provide the flexibility for all regions to kind of use whatever companies, resources, and opportunities they have available to them.
Connor, that's a great point, and I think a really interesting transition also to another topic I wanted to cover, and that is the role of the states themselves. So you talk about the ability of states to use resources that are available as it relates to maybe how to take advantage of federal programs, but what is the role of actual state-based incentives, do you think, in helping to advance green hydrogen or clean hydrogen? Comments on that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to jump in. There's some states that I think are clearly leaders and have been for a long time in the hydrogen space. You're looking at New York, California, especially being a clear leader in adopting hydrogen fueling stations and vehicles and ferries and all sorts of activities in the hydrogen space. And the reason that they have seen that adoption is because they have made it a priority. Because even though it's a higher cost, that they recognize that there's a long-term benefit for decarbonization and economic growth for the hydrogen fuel cell sector in their economies. So they're making those investments now because they see that there's going to be dividends down the road. And I think for the hydrogen hubs, we're going to see a lot of activity where you're going to see a lot more hub activity driving towards states that have those incentives and have those programs in place to help ease adoption. One thing I do want to mention is that there is $7 billion on the table from the Department of Energy right now out of that $8 billion total that was allocated to them. For 6 to 10 hubs, each are going to be provided $500 million to $1 billion in funding, but that is a 50-50 cost share. So that's going to be coming from state money and from the private sector. And I think the more that states can invest in this to help make this happen is going to be a significant benefit down the road.
Judith, perspectives on that as well?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, state support is absolutely critical, particularly for a company that is business that is state regulated. We're also federally regulated, but our distribution business is state regulated. So we've been sharing our vision with our states. We are very excited that that the states we serve have joined in to, into the, to create a Northeast hub. And I think we've yet to see exactly how some of it will play out in specific state incentives, but the enthusiasm to go after the federal dollars and to enable hydrogen, or to have a purpose in the economy is been terrific. I will say things, complementary policies like creating a renewable fuel standard, or to encourage the procurement of green gas such as hydrogen, is something that is very complementary to what we saw on the electric side in terms of a renewable portfolio standard. So I think there's complementary policies that could be quite beneficial for states to do, that can further build upon and leverage the federal incentives that exist. So that's something we're having conversations about, but we see that as a next step that could, again, fully leverage the federal dollars to benefit our states and ensure that the policy is there to, to enable the encouragement of these dollars coming into our region versus going elsewhere.
Yeah, and I'll just add on to the group here and say I think the regulatory environment is going to be very key to get right. Not that we just need to be lowering the barriers, but making sure stakeholders are engaged in each part of the process. And that, we are developing hydrogen technologies that is, that has the highest amount of environmental fidelity. So making sure we're getting the safety codes and standards and everything done early, I think will require a lot of partnership with local and state governments. And just to chime in on the last piece as well, we have an open ask to submit feedback on the clean hydrogen production standard draft. I can share a link in the chat with the draft document, and there's an email address to submit your feedback and comments there. Really, the devil is in the details in terms of assessing in the life cycle of emissions of hydrogen. And so, we want as much expert feedback and input as we can get on this, because there's a lot of particulars that do get very tricky. And again, we want to get this right, because we need to make sure that it is clean hydrogen, truly clean hydrogen, that is getting delivered to end uses that can then decarbonize the economy.
Sorry to interrupt such a great discussion. Thank you all, but we're going to switch to audience Q&A now. So this is Liza with Our Energy Policy. The first question, just more of a clarifying question. Can you explain further what you mean when you're referring to renewable natural gas?
Is that a question for me?
Anyone wants to take it, so go ahead.
Okay. So when I was referring to renewable natural gas, I saw that as not specifically talking about hydrogen, but talking about gas that comes from waste sources. So today there is basically biomethane from agriculture, from landfills, from wastewater treatment plants, that is either going direct into the environment or in some cases is being flared. But in essence, sources that are today emitting, and instead taking that gas, having it not go into the atmosphere, cleaning it, and then using it as a productive energy source, does a couple things. One, it ensures that isn't going into the atmosphere as methane, and two, it displaces the need to utilize natural gas, non-renewable fossil gas from our system. So that's something that also had incentives in some of the latest legislation, and we're seeing a lot of growth there. And we see that as complementary to hydrogen, as in that situation, the molecules are similar. So it's a direct replacement, and then blended with hydrogen can be used for a completely clean solution.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, what policies and incentives are in place to help convert legacy power plants into hydrogen plants?
One thing that was included in the Inflation Reduction Act was an additional loan authority for the Loan Programs Office in DOE that specifically targets legacy infrastructure. And hydrogen would be, a potential use case for converting some of that legacy infrastructure into, potentially clean power or other opportunities. So I can't talk too much about LPO because it's not what I do, but certainly they have a lot of public materials on the recent components in the IRA that affect them and the new loan authorities that they have.
Great, thank you, Thomas. This one's for all of you. I'd love an answer from each of you. What do you see as the biggest hurdles for the future of hydrogen development?
Well, I'll just say that I think one of our biggest hurdles for a very long time was cost. And I think that with the passage of the IIJA and the IRA, that cost factor is going to quickly become more relevant. With the cost of hydrogen coming down, getting more economies of scale has really been a critical piece that we've been pushing for. So getting more large scale development is going to be, a big driver in this. I think in the more long term, we're going to be looking at issues really around just kind of the regulatory environment, permitting and pipelines in particular, making sure that we can get these systems put in place as quickly, effectively, and safely as possible. I think that it's going to be a big piece for our industry moving forward.
I'll build on something that Connor said there. I think one of the interesting factors, and this varies across jurisdictions, is how easy it is to build new pipelines, or to effectively, let's just call, even more generally, it's the issue of transportation. It's how best to transport hydrogen. And so to the extent that there are jurisdictions that make it easier for pipelines to be built, well, that enables certain types of use cases that will be harder to implement if pipelines are not as easy to build. And in those jurisdictions, you might have to have production that's nearer to use, right? So, or you'll have to just deal with the cost issues associated with different methods of transport. So I think one of the key issues and challenges to work out is going to be the approach to transport, how it's solved in different jurisdictions for different kinds of use cases.
Yeah, and I can build on both those points. I think cost, as said, is always a barrier. If something costs more, but this is a game changer, the legislation in bringing down the cost and bringing it down quickly. It's always important to look at a cost comparison that is not only, what is the cost to that compared to that fossil resource, but compared to how you would in other ways clean that. But even that said, you're seeing potential parity with fossil fuels based on the incentives that are available and the cost curve reductions that are expected. So that just tremendously unlocks the potential of hydrogen. Supply is ensuring we have enough supply is another thing where I think we're seeing the incentives to come into play. But that's something we've heard. That question about how it is transported. Being able to permit pipelines for 100% hydrogen, having the codes and standards for blending into our system is another key aspect, and we're working on both of those. But what we have seen from our analysis is moving gas by pipeline is far cheaper than any other method. It's far cheaper than trucking, barging, rail. Particularly at scale. So that is what really unlocks the commodity cost to come down and be a parity with fossil fuels. And so we think that, agree with that as being critical. And then, customer engagement. I think we need to, people ask, is it safe? Every history book that everyone who went through elementary school saw the Hindenburg. So that is always the question is it safe? And it is safe. Just like you wouldn't fill a blimp with natural gas, you probably shouldn't have filled it with hydrogen. That does not mean that it is not safe. That was the wrong way to use it. Putting it in a pipeline, using an existing applications is just as safe as to what we do today, but much cleaner. Also, I mean, when hydrogen is combusted, it creates steam, it creates water vapor. It doesn't create anything else. So the codes and standards, the studies, we have conducted a lot of them. We've worked with institutes like GTI, with State University of New York. We're working with partners to do those studies to give that comfort that it can be safely transported and used. What we're seeing shows that it can, but we need to get that message out there. That is going to be key to ensuring that our stakeholders, our communities are comfortable with what we're doing. And then, of course, that leads into being able to get the siting and the permitting. We can't forget that step. Engaging the community, working with them, answering the questions is going to be key to removing the barriers.
Yeah, I'd just like to build on that and say, a lot of these big challenges are also some of our great, opportunities in that, if we get safety, codes and standards correct, that will be a tremendous enabler for rolling out hydrogen infrastructure. If we do the engagement early and often and meaningfully with community groups, who are affected by hydrogen, I think that'll also be a key enabler to all these things. But one on the technical aspect, hydrogen storage has been an issue for a long time. We joke it'd be great if there was a salt cavern in everybody's backyard. Unfortunately, that's not the geological reality of the United States. So finding places to securely store hydrogen in a low-cost way will require innovation and some forethought and planning on our parts, because the storage costs can definitely catch up with you depending on your application and the needs for the amount of hydrogen you need, such as for backup power, as we mentioned, for places like data centers. So some important things to consider.
Great, thank you all. Those were great answers. On the more technical side, can one of you give some information on the energy content of hydrogen fuel cells, especially for transportation and comparing to gasoline or batteries of similar volume?
Well, I could say on a well-to-wheels basis, because fuel cells are an electrochemical device, it's not combustion, they have a much higher energy efficiency compared to internal combustion engines. So you can get 2 to 3 times the range on a vehicle using the same amount of natural gas turned to hydrogen or natural gas in an internal combustion engine. On a emissions basis, even any kind of hydrogen is going to be at least a 50% reduction in carbon intensity compared to a gasoline vehicle today. If you get clean hydrogen, it's just going to be going much further down. So it is a very clean, efficient, and effective way of transportation.
Great, thanks, Connor. Anyone who wants to answer, do you have any thoughts on the workforce needs of a hydrogen economy, and where does the country stand now, and what's needed to expand that workforce to support your goals?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. First thing I'll say is, National Grid has an excellent workforce, a union workforce that delivers essential services to our customers every day, that knows how to do pipelines, interconnections, run a safe gas system, and hydrogen leverages those, our workforce talent. It enables good paying union jobs to continue. And when we put out our fossil-free vision, I think it was exciting because it showed that there is a future for the types of talent that we already have by transitioning to clean gas. So it absolutely leverages that. Of course, there's always new skill sets, and so ensuring that we have training programs. We would of course ensure that as we learn about new types of gas was in our system, that there would be training for that and how to handle that. I mean, that's our bread and butter. That's what we do. We deliver safely. So we would expand upon that. But there's, I think that's one of the most exciting things about the work that DEW is doing, is that importance on workforce and the good jobs that can come from creating a hydrogen economy, and can leverage the talent that we have in the U.S. already in this industry, but do so in a way that it also enables our clean energy goals.
I'll just add that I think that there's a huge opportunity to transition a lot of traditional oil and gas jobs to the hydrogen economy. There's a lot of synergies there. This is a huge opportunity as, we are looking at a lot of places around the country that are seeing these jobs dry up. And this is a huge opportunity to take those existing skills and transfer them to a clean energy economy.
Great, thank you both. A bit of a pivot. So what is the role of fresh water in generating hydrogen? How much is needed generally? Where is it coming from? And are there any concerns about availability?
So today's fossil energy resources consume a lot of water. It takes a lot of water for coal or natural gas power to use. Hydrogen, even if you're using electrolysis, is much smaller in comparison. It's a fraction of that that's needed. Even if we transitioned the entire US economy to hydrogen, it would take however many gigatons of hydrogen to do so. That would only be about 10% of the fossil fuel, the water consumption for the fossil fuel industry today. Sorry, Thomas, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You hit the nail on the head there. No, it's we have a working paper that will be coming out soon on this topic because we've been following it closely and scooping up all the literature on it as that comes out. But yes, exactly. There's an important distinction. Sometimes there is confusion between water use and water consumption. So a plant might take in more water than they actually use to convert to hydrogen. So sometimes there's some misleading information out there if you look at water consumption versus use. So be mindful of not necessarily all water that flows into the plant gets used by the plant, but gets returned to the ecosystem.
Great, thank you. I think this is our last question. What is the status of jointly developing hydrogen plants along with renewable energy facilities to power production?
There's a lot of it right now. We're seeing a lot of electrolyzer development around the country. And what's really exciting is we are seeing kind of the world's largest electrolyzer being announced every couple months because we keep saying, this is the world's largest one at 10 megawatts. Well, now that we're going higher and larger and bigger. But yeah, they're always, they're not always, but typically co-locating your renewable development with electrolyzers is very common. There are certainly a lot of opportunities to, use renewable energy credits, those kind of RINs and other activities to purchase and power purchase agreements, book and claim to direct that renewable electricity to your electrolyzer, so it doesn't have to be purchased or located on site. But there is certainly a number of places that right now we're seeing that in development.
And one thing I would just add on that is I think that there are lessons learned overseas too, right? I mean, the US market is now getting accelerated by incentives and important policies to catch up on green hydrogen where some other folks are overseas. And some of those folks, in terms of the technology and how to couple those technologies and how to co-locate, have already been successfully performed in other places. And so there's a lot of great learning to kind of help grow here and to help to leverage that learning here and to take advantage of it and expand on it as we expand green hydrogen in the US.
Well, I hate to jump in because this has been such an enlightening and really fantastic conversation touching on so many of the different pieces of this, the economics, the technology, the safety, the policy and permitting, I mean, really across the board. And so Judith, Connor, Thomas, and Tony, thank you very much for this conversation. We will be posting the recording of it on our site. So for those of you out in the audience who have colleagues that may not have been able to make it today, but want to get the benefit of it, we will have it up within a day or two. And I really encourage you to let people know about it being there. I also want to thank Shepard Mullen, our co-host, and all of our partners for their support, and mostly thank all of you in attendance today for taking the time to join us and for supporting OEP. Again, I want to encourage you also to use our resource library if you have additional questions or interest in the hydrogen topic or really any topic. It is the most extensive energy resource library online, and so we urge you to use it. It's an important program that we offer to the public. So once again, to all of our panelists, thank you very much. And to all of you in the audience, I wish you a good day, and we look forward to welcoming you at another OEP event in the near future. Thanks again, and have a great rest of the week.